Should you pull for Laguna, Yda, and Lunafreya? Yes, we're doing 3 people in one video. Isn't that cool? Starting off with Laguna's, his roles are a ranged attacker and a debuffer. Very simple. His attacks: Grenade is skill 1, deals 3 split HP, granting the party brave by 30% of his own max brave, granting 40% attack up for 6 turns, and inflicting group 50% speed down for 6 turns. Shotgun, his skill 2, deals 3 HP attacks with 150% splash, granting party 60% max brave up for 5 turns, inflicting group 50% attack down for 5 turns. Ragnarok Buster, his EX, will deal 6 HP attacks with 150% splash, inflicting group 50% speed down for 6 turns, and granting the buff Manly Charm for 6 turns. Ragnarok Blade, his LD, deals 6 split HP attacks, giving 1 free ability use, granting the buff Look, the Fairies Are Here for 9 turns, and inflicting onto all enemies Coochie Coochie treatment for 6 turns.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Laguna out here giving enemies his coochie? That's crazy. Well, with the buff Look, the Fairies Are Here, he gets granted his follow-up attack, dealing 4 split HP attacks after all of his attacks. Gunner Beat, his FR, on the attack, it will inflict group 50% speed down for 6 turns. Desperado, his BT, will inflict group Desperado for 4 turns, and the effect itself will last 6 turns with a party HP cap up of 4% per debuff on the target. So the maximum party cap up you're going to be getting is 32%. With the Desperado debuff, it will trigger with any sort of HP attack. It will deal 2 AoE HP attacks by 500% of Laguna's attack. Laguna's force conditions: you're getting a 40% whenever you're dealing brave damage to all enemies, a 5% increase per debuff on the target after acting, and the max of this will be 40%. Is Laguna's BT necessary? Yeah, the best part of Laguna's kit is with his BT. Without it, you're going to be missing his HP cap ups, as well as that very good trap, Desperado. His damage is still going to be pretty decent if you don't have it, but at that point, if you already have fully built debuffers in your party, you're probably better off using them instead. Next breakdown, let's go to Yda. Her roles are going to be a melee attacker, consecutive turns, and a debuffer. Going to her attacks, we're going to start with her HP+++, inflicting 1 HP attack with 50% splash, extending active buffs by 2 turns, and whenever you're inflicting break with this move, Yda will be granted instant turn rate. Snap Punch, her skill 1, deals 8 HP attacks, granting 40% max brave up for 5 turns, granting 60% speed up for 5 turns. The plus version will deal 12 HP attacks instead, granting 1 level of active Grease Lightning. Touch of Death, her skill 2, it is a very high turn rate move that deals 9 HP attacks with 100% splash, upgrading her skill 1 to its plus for 1 use, inflicting group brave poison by 80% of her own initial brave for 6 turns, and inflicting group sap and HP poison for 6 turns. Tornado Kick, her EX, deals 7 HP attacks with all 20% splash, upgrading to the plus version with active Grease Lightning, her overhead. The plus version will instead deal 8 HP attacks with all 50% splash and reduce 1 level of active Grease Lightning. 6-star LD, this is the big kicker here. It will first increase her brave by 50% of her own max brave. It is a very low turn rate move that deals 12 AoE HP attacks with a temporary HP damage up by 20%. This move will give 1 free ability use, upgrade her skill 1 to its plus, granting 100% evasion up for 1 turn. However, with her overhead active, I'm going to get to that a bit later, she's going to be getting a total of 4 turns for evasion up. I just wanted to stress this because technically it only gives 1 turn, but it's really not 1 turn. And then finally, the last buff it will grant is Here With My Partner for 12 turns. Arrival of the Phoenix, her FR, while it is active, anyone breaking or attacking a broken target will get an HP cap up of 50%. Our Final Heaven, her BT, get ready for this one. The effect will last 10 turns. Upon activating, you will start with level 1. It will increase 1 level after every act that Yda does, maxing out at 3. At level 1, you'll be getting a party HP cap up of 30%, the standard. Level 2, you'll be getting an extra HP cap up for herself by 60%. On herself, from her BT, it would be a 90% at this level. And at level 3, the max level, Yda will be getting a 120% cap up, giving herself a total of 150? Yeah, 150 for herself from her BT alone. Her buffs and debuffs: Sap and HP Poison. It's very simple. HP Poison by 100% of Yda's attack, and a Brave Sap by 10% of Yda's max Brave. Here With My Partner, her LD buff makes it so whenever she deals critical damage on the enemy, she will be getting an extra HP cap up of 20%, as if 150 wasn't enough. She needed more. And her overhead, Greased Lightning, I'm pretty sure that's a movie by the way, gives Yda a Brave regen by 120% of her initial Brave, and then makes it so any buffs she casts on herself itself will be extended 3 turns. This is what I referenced, by the way, with her evasion buff. For any inflicted debuffs, they will also be extended by 3 turns. Pretty nice. Let's move on to our force conditions. There are 2 of them. The first one will give a 40% whenever anyone uses a melee ability, and a final 40% when breaking or attacking a broken target. Is Yda's BT necessary? Yes, 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 and yes. It elevates her damage potential a crap ton, giving her a 150% kappa by itself and incredible self-sustain along with it. Without it, her LD will still be hitting like a truck, but at that point, she's lost most of what makes her stand out from other DPS units. If you already have other fully built attackers, you don't plan on greening Yda, her value drops substantially in my opinion. Now let's move on to the final breakdown. Lunafreya. Her roles are going to be ally turn manipulation, support, battery, healer, and imperil enchant. Her attacks: energy healer skill 1 is an instant turn rate move that FR charges, healing the party by 80% of the max HP and granting party brave by 300% of her own initial brave. Frigid Fubuki. Her skill 2 increases her brave by 500% of her own initial brave, and then it will deal 6 HP attacks with 250% splash, inflicting group ice and water resist down for 6 turns. Diamond Dust. Her EX grants the party brave by 500% of her own initial brave first, and then it will deal 7 AoE HP attacks, inflicting group ice and water resist down for 6 turns, and granting the buff Promise with a familiar for 6 turns. Awakening. Her LD. This is the real meat of her kit. It is an instant turn rate move that deals 7 split HP attacks, granting the party brave by 300% of her own initial brave, increase both of her skill uses by 1, extending any active buffs by 1 turn, giving 1 free ability use to herself and allies to her right, as well as granting quick prayer for 2 turns to herself and allies to her right. It will also grant heavy prayer for 5 turns to herself and allies to the left. Furious Spray. Her FR. While it is active, the party will be getting a brave regen by 100% of Lunafreya's initial brave, an HP regen by 20% of her max HP, and a party water over enchant. This enchant will mix with other elements. Coronal Spark of Life. Her BT. It lasts for 8 turns. Any casted buffs that Lunafreya does will be extended by 1 turn, as well as a party HP cap up of 20%. And finally, we'll give a party HP cap up of 20%. Buffs and debuffs. Promise with her familiar will give a party ice enchant, as well as a party initial brave up by 60%, max brave up by 40%, and a brave regen by 80% of her initial brave. Lunafreya's force conditions. You're getting a 40% when you're using an ice ability, and another 40% when you're using a water ability. The second condition will give a 20% whenever anyone casts a buff to an ally. It can't be just to yourself, it has to be to an ally as well. Is Lunafreya's BT necessary? That's basically my answer to this question. Apart from the standard BT support auras that you get from her, she actually gives less HP cap ups, only a 20% up, and some other support units like Kiaran, Deuce give even bigger cap ups than that. Hell, Realm gives higher HP cap ups than Lunafreya does. The best part about her BT effect is, in my opinion, the fact that her casted buffs get extended by 1 turn. This includes her quick prayer, her heavy prayer, so it will improve her LD to an extent. However, that is only when she's in the main party. By far, her biggest value come from her LD itself and just Lunafreya as an LD call. That's where her best uses are. Quite frankly, given how many great support units are coming out, unless Lunafreya is an absolute favorite for you and you don't care about whether she meta or not, you're much better off using your BT materials elsewhere. Now that we've gotten all the breakdowns out of the way, let's start with the should you pulls. Should you pull for Laguna? Let's start with the things he does well. My favorite part of his kit is that trap attack from his BT. Desperado is very strong, very consistent. It scales with force time, so at 999%, guess what? Laguna's trap is going to be dealing 999% more damage. And I like this debuff as well, especially for 6-man missions where Laguna might not necessarily be in the main party at the time. The trap is still going to be dealing full damage. The trap is still going to be dealing full damage even when he's not there. And I like the flexibility with that. It makes Laguna, in my opinion, a pretty cool option for 6-man missions. It's based on Laguna's attack stat. So the only way it would not hit for full damage is if Laguna's attack itself is lowered, say enemy debuffs or effects, or any HP reductions. Apart from that, you're pretty much going to be hitting for full most of the time. What I also like about this trap is it can be triggered multiple times given on what kind of off-turn damage you have. If you got someone like Sice, Ace, those were very, very good combos to use with Laguna back in the day, where since each of their off-turn damage was triggered individually, Laguna's debuff would be triggered. Looking at Laguna's on-turn damage, it's not bad either. His follow-up attack dealing 4 4 split HP attacks. That's pretty meaty for a follow-up attack, and it's not even based from Laguna's BT. As long as you just have the LD buff on, he's hitting that follow-up. Even just 3rd slot unit damage, it's not the worst. And lastly, with his FR conditions, I gotta say, they're pretty generous. The fact that Laguna's a debuffer, 5% per debuff on the target, that's gonna be pretty easy to hit with him, along with all the other calls you probably have, as well as any debuffs your allies might bring. The first condition requiring dealing brave damage to all enemies. Listen, most units in the game have some capacity of being able to deal AoE brave damage. Dealing brave damage to all enemies is an easier condition to fulfill than if it was a single target brave damage requirement. The LD, the FR, BT finisher, you got a lot of options in your hands that can help you fulfill that first condition, and it's not hard to fulfill at all. On the downsides of Laguna, as with the case with most debuffers, watch out for overloading the enemies with too many debuffs. If you overload the enemies with too many debuffs and you try to inflict, say, his gold frame Desperado and you don't have room, guess what? You won't be able to inflict that debuff. Laguna's main value as a unit is gone from that. You got to make sure you track all of the debuffs that are in your party when you use him. Be wary of debuffs that any calls of yours can inflict. You're going to have to plan it out a little bit if you want to use him, and I would say this is probably his biggest con, in my opinion. So yeah, overall, pretty good unit. Would I go out of my way to pity him? Definitely not. I think there are better options at hand right now, but for people who already have him greened, like I do, I think just getting that extra FR is a very nice bonus. Moving on to Yda. Should you pull for Yda? Probably. Let me just address the elephant in the room. She has godlike damage, one of the best DPS units in the game when she comes out. Specifically looking at her LD, it is one of the strongest skills in Upper Omnia. And if you haven't heard this yet, at max damage, her LD actually does more damage than Astos' LD. Pretty cool there. Makes Yda a very, very good nuking option. Utterly disintegrating bosses. What I like also about Yda is with her BT, she actually has a lot of self-sustain built into it as well. I didn't list it specifically, but if you're looking at her BT, she's going to be giving herself 140% HP damage up. Her brave damage is going to be raised by 90%. It's very, very good. So if you don't have the best support units at hand, it's fine. She's still going to be dealing pretty good damage just from her own. And in my opinion, this also elevates her for new players as well, because they might not have the best support units at hand. They might not have Deuce. They might not have Kiaran. They might not have Akina or Setzer. One thing that her LD does give is that 100% self-evasion. I think that's pretty cool. I think having a buff like this is pretty cool. And remember that with her overhead effect, she's not going to be casting evasion for 1 turn. It's going to be 4 turns. You have a little bit of leeway. You don't have to just spam her LD all the time. And lastly, I gotta say, her FR conditions are restrictive with that melee condition, in my opinion. But if you're building for specifically melee teams, I think Yda's FR as a main is a good idea. It has the very easily attainable 50% cap up on itself, and you're going to be getting very consistent full numbers with it, given that her second condition, breaking or attacking a broken target, is, in my opinion, one of the easiest conditions you could ever have it as an FR. There's a whole lot to like about Yda, and it's been a while since I've given someone this high of a rating. But like I said with Yda's FR, the fact that it rewards only melee and you can't really fit the FR in range teams, magic teams. Also the fact that the evasion buff that she gets with her LD isn't framed, so if you're not careful, that could be very easily pushed off with other buffs coming in. If you want to utilize that evasion, just got to be careful about that. Other than that, Yda is a very, very good pickup, and I myself will be gemming for her. Or, oh, I'm sorry. I myself will be pitying for her. If we're following my RNG pattern. Now, the last unit, should you pull for Lunafreya? I would definitely pull Lunafreya up to her LD. FR and BT, that's where it gets muddy in my opinion. Let's start with her LD. Her LD is goated. Amazing LD. It boosts the damage of both off-turn attackers with her heavy prayer and on-turn attackers with her quick prayer. With quick prayer, you're able to have consecutive moves back to back. And for a DPS unit who wants to take as many turns as possible, that's a really good thing to have. Her LD is incredible for offense, and also because you're able to have consecutive turns, it makes setups for BT phases that much easier. If you're trying to set up a BT phase for slower units like Rex, Strago, Lunafreya, be it main party or just as a call, will make that setup much easier. It's the reason why I highly recommend just pulling up to her LDs, because you would have access to that as a call, and you can use her call in any party you want, really. As a main party unit, there are some qualities in her FR that I like. If you're able to fulfill fulfill all of the conditions, you're going to be getting pretty high numbers. You're going to be getting 100% plus per move if you're able to grant buff to an ally and deal both elemental ice and water. She basically covers the ice and water by herself. You just got to worry about that buff. It's not very generic at all, but even if you don't fulfill that condition, you're still going to be getting an 80% with her dual enchant, and I think that is still pretty good. That extra 20% is more or less just a bonus, but if you're able to get that bonus consistently, 105, 107% per each attack, it's not bad for an FR. Now with Lunafreya's cons, I gotta say, when you look at her kit, her HP cap ups are kind of lacking. The BT gives less HP cap ups than normal. It only gives a 20%. Generic BT gives a 30%. The fact that her FR, while there are qualities to it that I like, doesn't offer any HP cap ups by itself, and I think that's a real shame. In my opinion, it would have given Lunafreya a lot more value as a main party unit if her FR had cap ups to it, but it doesn't. So what value does she have more, as a call or as a main party unit? Because of the cons, I gotta say, probably as a call. She doesn't bring much unique value at all outside of her LD. She can charge, sure, but you have so many different options to charge nowadays. She's not special with that. Her auras, I mean, they're okay, but we have so many other supports that have better auras, like Deuce, Kiaran. Would I say she's as good of a main party unit as those people? No. That's why I recommend, if she's not an absolute favorite for you, just get up to the LD and you'll be just fine with her. Hence why I have two different ratings for Lunafreya. B+ as a main party unit and an S rating for her call. So that is the Should You Pull. Ooh, 3 units in one video. That is crazy. This is going to be a lot to edit. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!